All right, I would like to thank all of you who are attending this particular conference. I really appreciate you or presentation at the conference and the conference itself for attending today. This particular panel is titled, what is it? Explore the World, What to Expect, How to Prepare, and How to Enjoy College Tours. So I am hoping all of you are either going to go on a college tour, or you're interested in it, or if maybe you're a faculty member or staff member, you might be interested in the future on participating or leading one as well. And today we have an absolutely excellent panel of very experienced people in college tours that can tell us an awful lot about what to expect and how to prepare as a student, as a person who's going to organize and lead one, and also give us some advice on how to transform what we're doing now into maybe a very effective long-term program, and let's say grow it a little bit more than what it already is, in other programs that are out there. So with that being said, I will allow our panel to introduce themselves because they can tell you about their experiences in college tours far better than I can. So Mariah, if you would like to start off, because you're at the upper left on my screen. So there you go.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, hi everybody. My name is Mariah. I work with Lizzie at EF College Study, putting together the short-term study abroad experiences. A little about myself and kind of how I got into this world is that when I was back in college, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Italy, which is very formative for my life and kind of something that I always took forward with me. And now, especially in this past year, come to recognize the importance of opening up yourself to the world and to others. And so really kind of just got more invigorated about the experience and hoping to pass it along to anybody here or answer any questions that we can.
Awesome. I'll go after Mariah since we work together. My name is Lizzie. I also work at EF. I am a program consultant here. So I work with faculty, of course, on your campus, but really nationwide to help faculty, help students put together study abroad programs for them to, see the world and, yeah, like Mariah said, grow professionally, personally, and academically. A little bit about myself. I actually never studied abroad in college. And my first time abroad was actually after I worked at EF and I got to shadow one of our programs. So essentially, I was putting my student hat back on and got to experience my first study abroad program alongside students on their first study abroad program. And it was awesome.
Allison?
Howdy, everyone. I am a professor in the Life Sciences Department at Weatherford College. And my first experience with travel abroad was when I was in college. I went to Austin College, a small liberal arts college just north of the Dallas area in Sherman. And they had a program called Jan Term, where it was a 1 month kind of mini semester. And typically in your junior or senior year, it was available for you to travel abroad. And one of my trips was to South America, to Peru and Bolivia and Chile. And it was such a formative trip. It really set the stage for where I wanted to see myself down the road in the future. I had thought all along that my sights were set on medical school and still was waylaid there for a short time. But then after that, realized that I wanted to be the person taking students on those trips or hiking around in the field or in the forests, collecting bugs and plants and practicing those things, putting them into practice, and then spreading that passion to other people. So when the opportunity presented itself at Weatherford College to take our students on a trip, I co-sponsored a trip with Jared Abraham in the English department, and we went to Costa Rica. And I was able to do just that, to hike around in the rainforest and pick up crazy bugs and point out snakes and freak the students out a little bit, but hopefully give them that formative experience where they could see, kind of take off the proverbial blinders and see the opportunities that were out there for them to do. And if anything, just to give them a cool experience to share with their friends and family. It was several years ago that we went on that trip to Costa Rica, but it's that opportunity for students is just beyond compare.
I am Adrian Treinnies. I'm a professor of English at Weatherford College, and I didn't travel as a college student, although I had desperately wanted to, but just the trip was too expensive, frankly, when I was in college. So I kind of missed that opportunity and did travel some after graduating. I led the trip to Iceland in 2019, and the traveling in at Weatherford College has largely been done by humanities up until recently. And so we actually formalized a committee for international travel, and I chair that committee at this point, trying to bring in some service programs too for some of the programs like police firefighters want to have something set up. Of course, COVID threw a big old monkey wrench in things. Last year, we had to cancel our trip to, let's see, Switzerland, France, and Italy. Then we were supposed to have the Greece trip this year that Dr. T is leading, and that's been now deferred to next year. So we'll be taking applications for 2023, May 2023, next fall. And so we'll be trying to get that going a little bit more vigorously once hopefully everything's back to something close to normal. So thank you for including me, Scott.
I don't remember what normal is anymore. It's just whatever. Okay, so for the attendees, if you want to ask a question, all you have to do is put your arrow or your cursor down on the screen and move it a little bit, and it'll pop up your little options. And if you hit the chat button, that will allow you to type in any questions that you might have. And we can easily stop in the midst of this and answer any questions that you will have. Now, my first question for the panel is, why do students and others typically want to sign up for these sorts of adventures? Who would like to start on that?
I'll jump in based on what I experienced and then let you guys answer. But my students sort of, I thought of it as sort of travel with training wheels, that some students had not ever traveled internationally. And because it was organized by the college, they felt a safety in that. And because we have EF tours and it was very guided and structured, that parents of some of those kids or some of the adult kids felt security in that in a way that they wouldn't necessarily feel as comfortable striking out on their own.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And even me as a faculty member, I felt more safe traveling in that small group in a somewhat more sheltered environment, but we still were able to experience things that were real and not set up and not fake for just a show, a tourist group per se. And then the other side of things was the cost was much better traveling in that smaller group. And then the stress, the anxiety of trying to plan a trip on my own. I've done a trip with just my husband and I to Costa Rica just the year prior to taking the EF Tours trip. And it was stressful trying to think about what to see when I was there, and then trying to organize all of those individual elements. So to just have someone already have it planned out, do all the scheduling, and if there was ever a kink in the scheduling, such as a weather delay or something happening with a volcano was shut down that we couldn't go see, well, they shifted gears and we went to a different volcano. So that reducing that anxiety was wonderful for someone else being able to plan out that trip for us.
Definitely. And I'll build upon both of those statements in the fact that when you do take the liability off of yourself, or you work with a provider or teacher or someone who helps prepare all of the elements of the program, it really opens up the door for you to go abroad and enjoy yourself. And not only is it a fun time in a new country, but you are also growing as an individual in your personal and your professional and intellectual development. Something that we've come to recognize in the market, in the job market, is that employers are really looking for individuals who can speak to a lot of the soft skills that are developed on international experiences, and it is something that will benefit you in the long run. So you're going to have a great time, going to be in this experience with people you trust and are surrounded by, and then you yourself will be growing and setting yourself up for success in the next stage.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'd add in addition to all of these amazing, amazing comments is, there are tons of different study abroad options and opportunities for students. So definitely find, what is going to be the best fit for you. I know Mariah and I are obviously coming from EF, and both of you also have led EF programs in the past, and we really focus on these shorter term study abroad programs, which is awesome because it fits right into your schedule, and it, although being short term, you still get all of those values that Mariah was just mentioning from this program. So, you don't need to necessarily sign up for a semester or a year or something like that if that doesn't fit into your schedule. These programs are so awesome no matter the length, so amazing in terms of all of those outcomes. And it's just really, really great. It's fun, and it's a really awesome opportunity to grow yourself and see the world.
Okay. Another question is, what do the students get out of it? And is it worth the money? Is it a wise investment in themselves?
A tremendous investment in themselves. And I think, as Mariah pointed out, with those even marketable job skills that you set up so many, it's networking with peers and with your faculty. And our group was small enough when we traveled. We only had 5 students and then 4 faculty/spouses. And we were paired up with 2 other colleges that also had smaller groups. So we were able to network with those other colleges that were from different parts of the country and set up some lifelong relationships. I have colleagues now that I communicate from other universities. So absolutely worth it for all of those things that I gained from it. And I think my students feel strongly about that as well.
I think there's also an element of surprise. The value, it becomes much more apparent to them at the end of the trip. The front end cost is sometimes intimidating. I had students, we were paired, we had a closer to yours, Scott, we have about 20 students going, and we got paired with an institution that had a environmental science class. And my students, we went to all these different places. We went to a geothermal power plant. We went a lot of different places. And the students they had grown so much and learned so much, even sort of like from the other college, what they found out and how different people, or how different things are in other parts of the world as far as how they live, but similarly also how kind of universally human we all are. And so it just sort of took some blinders off of them.
And then the element I'll add from the provider side is that as we put together these programs, we do try to make it as all-inclusive as possible. So oftentimes somebody will see the upfront cost, but just breaking it down into everything that goes into an international experience, understanding where your money is going is very important for these. So yes, I'll also say it is worth the cost. We recognize that costs, wherever they are in the spectrum, can mean different things for different people. So I think we'll get into that a little bit later about how to work with the cost and find the best way for you to be paying for it. But one thing just to recognize firsthand is that everything that you will have already taken care of before even getting over there.
Yeah, those are all great points. In fact, Adrian and Allison, both of you literally said exactly what Mariah and I were thinking, when we were preparing to come to this. I think the only thing that I really would add is, honestly, when thinking about these programs, again, let's take any of these programs, the Iceland program, the upcoming Greece program, for example, you are seeing and covering so much ground. And it's really, for lack of a better explanation, these moments between the bullet points on the itinerary where you do grow, and Adrian, to your point, kind of see this change. And yeah, up front, absolutely, these programs are a huge financial commitment, a time commitment, but so worth every penny. And some of that, you can't fully grasp until you are on the ground experiencing it or coming back and having those reflection moments. But it's absolutely worth it. I know I didn't study abroad when I was a student. That really is my biggest regret. So I was so happy to be able to experience, it, even though I was graduated from college already. It was so amazing. And I wish it was something I did take advantage of, when I was in school.
I think you're muted.
Scott.
Heather has asked a question, what are some ways to come up with the money to pay for the tours? And so my question is, what are the best ways for students to pay for these sorts of things?
Totally. From the EF provider side, more than happy to talk. I know Allison, Adrian, you might have some key tidbits into what's worked well for your specific students. But from the EF end, there are tons of different ways. And Mariah mentioned this before, everyone really is so different in terms of where they stand financially. So what might work for you might not work for your friend, and vice versa. That is totally fine. With EF, there's a ton of different options, from flexible payment plans to scholarships, both that EF give out, and there might be some through your school or just nationwide for folks to apply for. Additionally, on the EF side, we have tons of fundraising ideas, and we've created this really awesome budgeting guide as well for you as individuals, whether you're the professor or, a student on the program who does kind of want to nail down to the penny what money you might need to save, or, how you kind of want to split up your finances. It really lets you take a holistic view of everything you have, whether it's your school payments, a car payment, you work a job, you can really lay everything right out there and kind of pay and plan accordingly, which is really great.
4 out of 5 of the students in our trip did the payment plan. And because we had established, the deadlines for signing up for the trip almost a year in advance, maybe 10 months or so, that broke down the payments for them into very easy installments. And so they were able to budget for that accordingly, and it made it very reasonable for them. And I worked with a few of them on trying to find a few scholarship opportunities. And I don't know that any of them ever followed through with that, but they certainly existed where they could find some outside scholarships to help fund their way.
I think one of the important things to consider is certainly payment plan, but also one of the things at the college we've done is we try not to have competing programs. So when we have one program that we can advocate for, we can do it well in advance. We don't launch the other one until the other one's pretty secure, so that students have time to plan. We try to keep what some of our best practices we came up with in regard to the committee was keeping an eye on price points. That, exotic trips were certainly something that people would pay for, but you're not going to get the numbers for those students. I would love to see the college. We've been so aggressive about scholarships. Would love to cultivate some opportunities to get funding for scholarships for travel, for students who frankly otherwise wouldn't be able to go. Many of our students, not all of them, are not in a position where they can easily pay for the trip, but also get away from work in order to go on the trip. So there are different constraints for people. Being a community college, I'd like to open up more opportunities so that funding isn't as much of an issue in the future.
Definitely. And I think the final point that I'll just reiterate that everybody was saying is plan early and set yourself up for success. That was never my strong suit in life, but when you first see price tags, they can seem daunting. But if you break it up into smaller chunks and you lock in earliest pricing, planning out, everything that people have been mentioning, it does help. So that might be my one ticket piece of advice going forward.
I would also add to your point from earlier, Mariah, and that, kind of planning it out is important, but the other value in this is it's not completely all inclusive, but every breakfast, at least I've been on several of them, every breakfast is always covered. A lot of dinners or lunches are. I know Iceland was an extremely expensive place for us to go. So what they did is worked in more meals for us so that we weren't having our students have to go pay for, a $20 hot dog. It wasn't that bad, but it seemed like it at the time. So it is sort of all inclusive. And I don't think you could probably plan a trip yourself for the price points with all that it includes in that scenario.
Great point.
I think you might be on mute again. The online world.
Sorry, I have allergies and I keep on coughing. But Heather, Ms. Kaufman posted some information there for any of you actually on that issue of payments. What should students and others be prepared for on these sorts of tours? And how to prepare as well?
Anything. Surprises. One thing is that we do not, even though the trips can be, price point, they seem a lot. We don't have a concierge. We don't have a busboy. We don't have somebody taking care of our luggage for us. They should be prepared to walk a lot. They should be prepared to carry their own luggage. They should be well prepared as far as footwear goes. They should definitely be prepared with not overpacking and underpacking. We put together a packing list for our students for Iceland, and I know other teams have done that in different years as well, based on the location that they're going to. But traveling with just the right amount of stuff is tricky.
I agree with footwear. That's number one. And have backups to your backups in case it gets wet and soggy. And on having just the right amount of luggage. It's really hard to find that balance, but plan it out with other people that are going on the trip. So that way you can back each other up in need of emergency items. Make sure, when you are going, that you have your backups at home well established with your family members, friends that are watching out for everything in case you have any travel delays when trying to return home. Be open-minded when you're traveling and being exposed to other cultures. Take it all in and take many things home and try and share the best parts of our culture with those other cultures. And if it's a different language in the country where you're traveling to, be prepared that if you don't speak that language, make sure that you attempt to try and do your best effort, because that's very much appreciated in those cultures. When you try and make your best attempt, they're not going to laugh at you or make fun of you if you can't speak the language or if you mess up. They're going to be appreciative of your attempt at that. And if I hadn't spoken Spanish in many years, or just little bits and pieces, and used to be quite fluent. But when I was just immersed in it again in Costa Rica, everyone was so appreciative of my efforts for trying. I was very embarrassed to even attempt it at first, but once I did, and they, kind of reaffirmed that practice for me, it was very self-fulfilling and it increased my confidence. So it will help to increase your confidence. That's a good challenge if you go into it trying to rekindle a foreign language or learn a new one. It's a great time to do it.
I love that insight. And actually, just kind of building off of that, very similar. The biggest thing for me, and this is what I tell all of the professors that I work with and all of the students that I speak to too, but just go in with a positive energy and be flexible. Travel, although we have the itinerary itself kind of mapped out, nothing ever goes according to plan. I know that just walking down the street day to day, I run into my friend, I thought I was going to pick up a sandwich. Nope, I'm actually now, I don't know, going to get my nails done. Who knows what? The same thing happens when you're abroad. And, for example, when I was the first program I ever traveled with EF was to Spain, actually. And it was 14 days, we jumped all around the country and we went to about 9 different cities. It was amazing, but, nothing went as planned. And that was fun. And, I know for me, I was a little bit of an anxious traveler beforehand. I had never been out of the country, airplanes freaked me out. I didn't know anything about it. But if just going in with that open mind and say, hey, I'm ready to just kind of be here and show up with a positive mindset and just see what the world has to offer, and go in with, Allison, to your point, an open mind for different cultures and really pushing yourself to share the best parts of our culture and really try to, embrace theirs as well. It really made all of the difference.
Real quickly, Lizzie helped me to think of something else. Be prepared for a lot of downtime on the bus, because you do try, the tour tries to pack in all the different parts of the country. And so you'll have several hours at a time where you're probably traveling on a bus across the country. So make sure you have, a good book to read, or you're chatting with your travel buddy, or it may be some good snooze time. But also be prepared in case you get nauseous. We had several students on our trip because the buses are going, up and down mountains and around steep curves. So depending upon the country and the terrain, but make sure someone in your group, like maybe your tour leader or your sponsors, have some nausea medication, and make sure that you're up on, if anyone in your group, whether you're a student or the professor, make sure that you're well aware of any health issues that your traveling buddies have. If someone's a type 1 diabetic or has a seizure disorder, any of those things, make sure you're all aware. Not that you're trying to know everybody's business, but it's just smart traveling.
And the last thing I'll pull together with all of that is, it may seem like there's a lot of information coming at you right now, but we do have resources put together that will prepare you before you go abroad to the destination that you're traveling to. I am sure your leaders are going to be reaching out and letting you know little tidbits. So all of this will be on your mind as you're building up to the date and time, because you have a team behind you and you have all of us kind of at your disposal. So trust that we're giving you a lot of advice right now. You're going to have a great experience, but more information will be coming, and it will just be that time for you to get excited about going. You'll be tired and want you to return home, but it is that satisfying kind of tired.
I would also add one piece of advice that we got from EF Tours, actually, and that is listen to EF Tours and the guides. Don't go to sleep the first day until it's bedtime. Otherwise, you'll be jet lagged the rest of the time.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you speak from experience?
Well, I didn't make that mistake. I listened, but there were a few people who didn't, and I think they would have enjoyed their trip more, especially the first few days, had they listened.
Okay, the next question, kind of moving more toward the faculty side. What do faculty get out of leading such tours, and what should they expect?
Well, I'll go first. Oh boy, it pushed me a little bit. I have to admit, it's a lot. Even though EF was really good about, here's what your schedule needs to be. You need to make sure you have this, this, and that. Really, my primary concern was people's well-being. That they were safe, that they had, if they were on medications, if they had allergies, that they communicated all that really clearly. And I think for me, I was so worried that there was something that could go wrong. It's different kind of feeling like you're in charge of a whole bunch of people internationally. Uh, but what I found is that people are so adaptable, and as long as they were prepared and you reminded them to be prepared, that what really stunned me and what I value the most out of it is just seeing people find something new and connect with it and get excited about it. And I loved sharing that. I loved experiencing that myself when I was on these trips. And so I think probably realizing that flexibility is one of the most important things you can take on a trip.
A big second on that from me. It was a very fine balancing act, because I initially had thought, along for the ride. This is just a fun tour, and I get to be a part of it. And that's a big part of it, was getting to enjoy all of the sights and the foods and the culture. But that responsibility of being in charge of that size of a group. But you do have all of the people from EF that are very willing to help if anything happens. And things generally do. You can't plan for everything, but just to be level-headed and know that there's plenty of help all around you, and everyone's in that same situation together. But it was a very delicate balance of trying to do all of the things, but still very, very worthwhile. And I would do it again in a heartbeat.
And the one other thing I want to note there is that, as I was speaking to earlier, travelers who go on these programs, they build up their resume and they have their own professional development instilled on these programs. And it's very important to us that group leaders as well have opportunities to network, to get to know other people who are doing very similar activities to themselves, and growing up your own professional development. So I don't need to get into all the specifics now, but always happy to chat with anybody who may even be semi-interested in leading a program. Lizzie, myself, our team, we have these conversations every day, walking through what the expectations are and how it would play out, and want to be here for you. So come chat with us. Always happy to just have that informational phone call.
Yeah, that was great, Mariah. I think really the last thing that I'll say to kind of sum up what everyone was saying was, Mariah and I, the rest of our team, we're here to be your partner and really just help you. So it's never going to be just one conversation and we'll kind of send you off on your way to figure it out. We really will be here with you every step of the way. Of course, when you're abroad, we'll still be here, but you'll have help from, our tour directors and our emergency safety team, all of these different pieces to make sure you really do feel fully supported. That being said, if you were here right at the beginning, Mariah and I are based in Boston. So, there are just some things we can't do and help you in terms of getting the word out to your students and things like that. So yeah, that definitely, is a big thing for the faculty members to kind of do on their own. But again, Mariah and myself help and kind of guide and coach throughout that process to make sure that you feel fully comfortable and confident and are excited to experience it for yourself, to Adrian's point, and get that experience for yourself and give it to your students. So yeah, if anyone is ever interested in just learning more or potentially leading a program, we are more than happy to just answer any questions or walk through the process with you.
I'd also add one more thing, and that is, in the best practices that we put together, we recommended that you should have another faculty member, even if you have a small group, so that if something does go wrong, you've got one faculty member with, the group, and one faculty member with the student in need, if there is a student in need. So that's one of the things we've privileged, that, really you should have a second who's with you, and ideally someone who helps you coordinate it, somebody who helps build that to get, that program.
Okay. My next question is, and this is really, I suppose, for Adrian and Allison in particular, as leaders of these sorts of things, what was your most rewarding experience as far as doing that was concerned? And what was your most great, what were your big challenges as far as organizing and leading them?
The most rewarding things were when our students would just have a jaw-dropping, speechless moment, when we would find a species that they never even knew existed out in the wild. Like a glass frog is one that I remember, where it's this frog that its skin on its underside is literally translucent, so you can see all of its internal organs. And they're pretty rare, and we were only able to see it on a night hike. But it was just something that when I would hear my students later recount that story to other people, it's something they're never going to forget. So just being able to hear my students' excitement and sharing that joy with others was the most rewarding thing. And I forget the other half of your question, Scott.
What was the most challenging part of organizing?
Challenging part, unexpected health problems. And we dealt with it just fine. It was a challenge.
I think for us, the thing I found most exciting, and we kind of went in challenging our students, saying, figure out one thing that you would like to try. It's something that's going to push you, that you don't have, that's not part of the tour, but something that will push you to do something more. So, we had some students who had some fears, and especially there was a lot of food related stuff, and we were in Iceland and the diet is quite different. And so one of the things we did is we went to a place where they had fermented shark, and a handful of people said, I'm going to try fermented shark. That's what people eat in Iceland. And it was sort of like bragging rights. So that was probably one of the, just seeing them grow and appreciate something new was by far the best part. The worst part is we had some students that made me very nervous, that when they went axe throwing. And I think I would have enjoyed the trip as a participant more than a group leader once they were throwing axes. I'd say that was the biggest challenge, but that was more of a personal fear rather than a group fear.
Okay. Any advice for faculty that might want to do this, might want to lead in the future?
I can start. I know I kind of notioned to this beforehand, but there are really tons of different study abroad programs, different types in length, different providers, all of that. So, I just say if you're at all interested, just come with an open mind and really just start conversations, whether that be with Mariah or myself or any of the faculty members here on this panel or just on campus. Really just getting as much information as you can is really the best place to start. And if it's something that you've been thinking about for a while, you kind of want to do it, but you're not sure if your students are open to the idea, there's no shame in bringing that conversation to them and say, hey, I am thinking of doing this. What are your thoughts? And just gauging the interest from your students. I know something Mariah and I hear a lot from professors who are interested but have the hesitation that students might not be interested is, well, I don't want to do it because I'm just not sure. And, I think the number one thing we say is if you want to do it, why don't we start asking your students if they also want to do it? And we can start there and go from there and really take it step by step.
I would say an enthusiasm for the location is really important. So the first piece of advice would be pick a place that you really want to go. Pick a place that's really exciting. If you weren't enthusiastic about that trip, you're going to have a hard time recruiting for it. So that would be the first piece. The second piece would find another faculty member who kind of shares your vision of where you want to go, and make sure that you have somebody who is sort of a good second, that you have somebody that you have a good chemistry with, you have somebody who you can work with, and that kind of thing. I had Romney Landis went with me, and she had been enormously helpful, enthusiastic, and that was contagious, and everything went absolutely beautifully with her. So having a good team from the get-go that you can get excited about the trip with, I think matters a lot. So those would be my two big pieces of advice.
Those are wonderful points. I agree. I think the things that people regret most in life are the things that they didn't do, not the things that they did decide to do. So my first thought was, when you asked the question, Scott, was don't hesitate, do it. And yes, you're going to probably pause and take it all in, talk about it with your family, friends, make sure you have the support from others before you decide to take the leap. But find that passion and go there. And then once you do find that place that you'd love to travel to, that you're passionate about, there's different options from the tour group, such as EF, for what kind of tour would best suit your needs, such as focusing on the ecology of the area versus focusing on the culture and the language, or it may be specific to foods, or lots of different things, literature, so or landmarks. You could tailor, they can help you tailor exactly what you need that trip to be. And then the other consideration, I know for our group, we did not have it count towards any college credit, but we left that up to our group. It was small enough. And all of the students that went with us were just interested in having that experience. And so they didn't have any required credits that they needed to achieve for college classes. But if that's something that your tour group or that your group decides that they want, that's easy enough for the faculty working together, especially if you have a second person with you, to be able to make that work pretty easily for your group. So it's a win-win from that perspective. If your students, we're going to get some credit for a college course.
Just point of clarification, the vice president has opted to not do for credit trips in the future.
Thank you for clarifying.
And also,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Also,
prior to that. So
yes. Scott, I would also tell you, before the Italy, France, and Switzerland trip got canceled, we had planned on doing a post-trip questionnaire and ask questions about where would you like to go, what would you like to do, what would you change, what would you like to know more about. So we should get together and make sure that we do that for your trip next year.
All right, and I have two questions left, and this is going to kind of fit into our time perfectly. And the questions are dealing more about growing the program. And to a certain degree, this might relate more for Mariah and Lizzie. And the questions are, and I'm going to kind of just read them both to you. While WC has been doing college tours for many years now, how can the college take the next step on these sorts of things? And what makes a solid and successful college tours program? How does the college benefit from investing in something like this?
Yeah, those are both great questions. And I'll kind of start touching on them individually. So one thing that we're always reflecting upon in building the study abroad space on campuses is understanding where needs are being met and where they are not. So for example, that can pertain to certain departments that have continuous study abroad experiences going on every year, every other year or so. And have that setup already instilled, and then recognizing some departments that may not be having this. I know For example, we have a lot of engineering students that in the past have often not had experiences offered to them. However, that's been a main focus of a lot of campuses, is just understanding the different markets of interested travelers around. Can also pertain to different locations around the world. So if we're seeing that people are often planning to Italy, Spain, more European centric areas, can we get more Costa Rica, Latin America, Africa, Asia, all these other different locations around the world, programs being offered for students who want to go somewhere a little bit different. And then finally, along that line, recognizing which students are being represented on the travel experience, more so than just majors or departments. But one thing that I know EF is very passionate about is making sure this is an opportunity that everybody feels welcome and accepted on. So understanding where students are finding the availability to go and travel, or what's holding certain students back from signing up on these programs, and working through and understanding how to increase their chances of travel are by recognizing where the obstacles may be currently. So that's something that we definitely try to lean into and work on going forward.
Yeah, great. I think the only thing that I would really add is more of a summary, Mariah, to what you said, but our goal is to really help you all build sustainable programs on campus. So, one way that we do that, and I know it's already been mentioned a little bit, but is just thinking ahead, because not only is planning for the future important from the faculty's perspective, from the school's perspective, and from the students' perspective, it's great just all around in terms of thinking about how can we actually grow, whether it's the number of programs being offered or the number of students participating on these programs. So, for example, thinking ahead to 2022, great, we have, Dr. T, we have your program, amazing. 2023, Adrian, I know you said you're thinking about your program. That's awesome. Continuing to grow that and the importance of that on campus, so we continuously have these sustainable programs that students know year after year they have the opportunity to sign up for. And then for your second question, really what a ton of things make, a really successful college tour and just study abroad programs in general. But the main thing is really coming back to how you're helping your students. So on all of these programs, just study abroad in general, you're all helping develop global citizens, which I think is such an important, concept and what the world really needs. And you're giving these students the opportunity to succeed in life post-graduation, whether that is, continued schooling or, their career or a family, whatever it might be, you are equipping them with the skills that they need. And, in terms of really successful programs, again, just from the EF side, is when the professors, to a lot of the points that we've talked about, can take the space and the time to reflect on what is actually happening on the ground in these programs. So the learning doesn't need to just be over the course of these, 1 to 2 weeks. It really can be before you go to prepare what you're all going to be experiencing, to, the things that you're actually doing on the ground. But again, when you come home, to continue to develop, again, for lack of a better term, global citizens to better yourself for the rest of the world.
Well, does the attendees, the audience, have any questions that they might want to know or ask these very experienced people about? Anything? Well, okay. I really appreciate all of you attending the conference, and I really appreciate our panel members for giving up their valuable time to be here. And thank you so much. And I think the people who were here learned an awful lot. I know I certainly did. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.